Welcome to Rogue Intel by Prime Inc. I am Kevin Duska, president and founder of Prime Rogue. I'm here today to talk to you guys about Israel's multi-layered defense system. As you guys know, after the Israeli targeted assassination of Hamiyeh in Tehran, there have been emphatic promises by the regime, by the Iranian regime, by the Ayatollah, that a significant Iranian response would be coming. Now, we do remember that back in April, Operation True Promise saw the Iranians launch several hundred missiles and drones at Israeli territory, primarily from Iran proper, which was relatively unprecedented in terms of the nature of the attack, but we are seeing something that is likely going to be, I suppose the word would be, unprecedented whenever Iran makes this next attack against Israel. I thought it might be tonight. I mean, I would bet a body part of relevance to me that it'll be in the next 72 hours. I really did think it was going to be this past night, the second in North America. I have a feeling it'll probably be tonight, the third, but if not, I'm certain. I can't say I'm certain. I'm really convinced it's going to be tonight, the third, because there's a new moon on the 4th. So, anyway. But we are here to chat about the nature of the Israeli multi-layered missile defense system, how it works, and how these layers are meant to protect Israel from the various threats that it faces, and why there is a very real potential that, unlike in April, this system could potentially be overwhelmed if Iran were to launch a multi-front attack where it would target, and why don't we just visualize this really quick here, where it would target Israel from a combination of Iran itself, Lebanon, in all likelihood Yemen, as well as, the degree to which it would be possible to get Gaza involved has to be called into question, given that the IDF have it on pretty decent lockdown, but at the same time, it's not impossible. But to visualize this a bit better, this is Iran over here, Tehran is there. There are missile launch sites throughout the entire country. This is Israel, Jerusalem, the West Bank, etc. The Gaza Strip is here. Beautiful beachside territory. If we look at this other image I have here, it's about 2,700 kilometers from Iran to Israel as the crow flies. That involves flying over Iraq and Jordan. Last time around, Jordanian fighter jets, American fighter jets, I believe British fighter jets, and Israeli fighter jets were contributing to the effort by also shooting cruise missiles and rockets and missiles down. But that is still likely to be the case. But the degree to which this is going to be relevant is all contingent upon the number of directions from which Iran decides to launch missiles in terms of its proxies in Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, etc., and the types of missiles that are launched and the manner by which they are launched. I'm going to do another post on this if I have time before Iran launches its attack, but when Iran attacked back in April, a lot of analysts, myself included, feel that it telegraphed its attack. It had kind of an impetus to respond in the face of domestic pressure, or domestic audience costs, saving face, so to speak, after another IRGC commander had been basically taken out in what was otherwise considered a safe operational environment. But, there was a pretty wide feeling that Iran did not want to go to war against Israel. that's still pretty much likely the case. Israel is a superior military power to Iran. I mean, that's not even questionable. But at this point, the regime in Tehran doesn't really have much of a choice but to put on a better display. So what we saw last time, where we saw like several hundred projectiles, mostly fired from Iran proper, is likely to be replaced by different types of projectiles being fired from a multitude of different environments. And all these different projectiles are handled by the 7 different layers. Well, there are really 6 of them in operation right now of Israel's missile and rocket defense system. And we're going to start with the furthest out and then come on in. The Arrow system is for long-range missile defense. We're talking exothermic ballistic missiles. That's to say, missiles that go outside of Earth's atmosphere. Really, and the U.S. has versions of this at play as well. I believe it's called THAAD, Thermal High Altitude Defense something. And these are basically going to try to knock a nuclear weapon or an ICBM with a conventional payload out of the sky in either in exorbit or in low Earth orbit, with the goal of preventing the missile from impacting its target. And the value of these, which are oddly enough in nuclear deterrence terms viewed as an offensive weapon, because they kind of serve to hinder the balance of power, which otherwise kind of underlies the logic of nuclear deterrence. These systems are pretty limited in what their applicability here is going to be, as I would be highly surprised that if Iran was to use an exothermic missile in this case. It just wouldn't be practical, it wouldn't be relevant, and unless it has some massive surprise coming, I don't anticipate seeing a new Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. So I think that's largely out of the question, but that is the outer layer of the security system, the missile system proper, and it does play a very critical role in terms of maintaining Israeli defense. Now, if we are to move on to the next layer, we're talking about the Patriot air defense system. The Patriot air defense system, largely, well, it's supplied by the Americans. America provides a heck of a lot of so-called gifts to, or military aid, shall we say, to Israel. Has been shown to be highly effective in terms of protecting American bases overseas from various missile attacks. It's a well-known system. It's not a native Israeli system, so it's not, cogently integrated into the broader system, but it's there, and it has a role to play in terms of intercepting both intra-atmospheric and ballistic missiles, as well as cruise missiles. It has a high success rate, but it's not one of the main components of the system. Really, the 3 or 4 major components are David Sling, the naval air defense system, which Israel maintains in the waters off Gaza, which is called Barrage 8, as well as the Iron Dome system and the Iron Beam, which is still in testing. So those are the ones we're going to spend the most time talking about. First, David Sling is an integrated medium-range ballistic missile defense tool. It was developed in partnership with the U.S. Essentially, it sends a stunner missile up to basically disrupt and destroy the missile if it's being used to target Israeli soil. It is not cheap to use, however. The estimated costs of making use of the David Sling, and I'm just double checking the math here, the cost per interception is estimated to be several $1 million, about $2 to $3 million per interception. Well, it's 1 to 3, I would say, per interception. So if Iran were to launch a large number of medium-range ballistic missiles at Israel, that would not only cause stress to the system, because most estimates suggest that it could handle maybe a dozen or less simultaneous tracks. If Iran were to launch more than that simultaneously, there's a very real risk that a missile could get through. Now, it would probably still show an effectiveness rate over 90%, but at the same time, if one of those missiles were to hit a populated area, with Iran having promised to attack civilian targets, I mean, that would not be an ideal situation for Israel, to say the least. Next, we've got the Naval Air Defense System, which is called the Barak 4, and that's basically a set of, if you think of the Aegis missile system that the United States has, and it uses to shoot down a wide variety of potential missile threats, this does the same thing. It's basically for aircraft, drones, and missiles. It was developed in collaboration with India. It's integrated with a wide bevy of naval platforms, as well as with Israel's broader missile and rocket defense strategy, and it's kind of there to act as an intermediary between David's Sling and the Iron Dome in terms of filling a potential capabilities gap that might exist there. Finally, the most well-known component is the Iron Dome. Now, the Iron Dome is not targeting ballistic missiles. It's targeting rockets. We're talking about Katyushas and various other rockets, which are historically been fired from the Gaza Strip, sometimes from the West Bank, and what we're anticipating now is from Lebanon. It's believed that Lebanon have an arsenal of over 150,000 various rockets and missiles, and the greatest risk Israel faces is likely from a significant set of these rockets. It's estimated, and there are dozens of Iron Dome systems scattered throughout Israel. Each can track approximately 20 targets at the same time, costing $40,000 to $50,000 per interception, meaning that basically every time it's blowing its load in terms of emptying its magazines, it's spending between $800,000 and $1 million of, well, mostly American money, actually. So this basically is for the closer range missile threat. Now, it's my assessment that the greatest threat that Israel is going to face in this upcoming Iranian attack is going to be as a result of saturation fire. And let's go back to this other map. Let's go back to the Google map I was showing you, actually. So if we combine the notion that we're likely to see medium-range ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and various drones flying from Iran to Israel, although many will be intercepted in Jordan and over Iraq, that's for certain. But still, that's certain. We're going to see some missile launches, but we're going to see a lot of rocket launches from Syria. We're going to likely see some ballistic missiles launched from Yemen. That's almost certain. Although some may be stopped by the Saudis. The Saudis didn't really play too much last time, but I think they will come out in earnest. But the greatest threat, I believe, and again, I don't know if Tel Aviv is in range of Hezbollah's longer distance missiles and rockets, even Jerusalem actually, but it's really northern Israel, maybe down to Jenin, or between Nazareth and Jenin, that's facing the greatest level of threat. Because while Iran is going to be sending over these drone swarms and these ballistic missiles, not the Lebanese, but Hezbollah is going to be launching hundreds of missiles per barrage at Israel. And we do have a question from Wapaka in the audience. How to detect a missile? Can't you send a fake missile? Yes, you can. That's a very, very good question you're asking, Wapaka. So for one, if you're dealing with a ballistic missile, the kind of medium or long-range missile, whether intrathermic or exothermic that would be sent from Iraq, they can have multiple re-entry vehicles. And these can serve as decoys. So while it might be one missile initially, before it's intercepted, while it's still being tracked, it'll break up into 8. And some of these will be decoys. They could all be decoys. Some could be decoys and some could be actual warheads. But the point is, that's one way to overwhelm the system. Now, with rockets, the interesting thing is, you're not going to try to overwhelm the system through decoys. There's no point. A Katyusha rocket costs about $150 to make, $200 to make. It costs between, what was it, 40 or 30 and 40,000, or 40 and 50,000 dollars for Israel to intercept it. Although basically it's American tax dollars. 40 to 50,000 US dollars to intercept $150 rocket, $200 at most. So the cost benefit is pretty low. And Wapaka is talking about a Bitcoin pump. I do think that gold and Bitcoin are going to go up, both of them. Crypto and gold are likely to go up, especially if Iran does follow through and engage in a multi-day targeting of Israel. But the greatest danger that Israel's facing, in my opinion, and I think we'll see this borne out when the attack takes place, is that while it's possible that one or more of the drones and ballistic missiles sent from Iranian territory or Yemeni territory or Syria get in and get past David's Sling and Arrow and the Patriot batteries, what's most likely to happen is Lebanon, sorry, I meant to say Hezbollah. And I'm going to try to do a segment, if I have time tomorrow afternoon, looking at the missiles that Iran did not use in Operation True Promise when it was retaliating for the attack against its IRGC assets in Syria, in Damascus. I want to make a video about those. I'm hoping I'll have the time. If and when the Iranian attack begins, I'll be streaming it live. Generally, open source intelligence, we're capable of reporting stuff 20 to 30 minutes before the news channels do, so exciting times. Great accounts on Twitter, great other open source sources. So, yeah, we'll be streaming that on our Twitch channel at Prime Rogue Inc., which I'll link down in the description if you're a YouTube viewer. But what I anticipate is continuous waves being sent from Iran, because I don't see the Israelis doing a preemptive strike against Iran. It'd be too much right now. The Biden administration is kind of pressuring them not to. I mean, they already think Israel's gone too far, and arguably it has. Pardon my language, but it's almost as if Israel saw a red line in the sand, kicked it, tried to erase it, took a shit on it, peed on it, set it on fire, threw oil on the fire, then nuked it. Like, that's how much the red line has been crossed right now in taking out the political leader of Hamas. So we're going to see tons of fire from Lebanon. Israeli air assets are going to be up dealing with cruise missile and ballistic missile threats. We've seen a lot of that in the Ukraine-Iran conflict. This is a capability that fighter jets do have at standoff distance. But it's going to be that rocket fire from Lebanon. Potentially some missiles from Lebanon coming in and ruining Israel's day. In a best case scenario for the Iranians and the and Hezbollah, I generally don't make these types of estimates, but what they would view as a good day is a body count rivaling that of October 7th. So if they manage to kill 100 or more Israelis, that would be a win
in terms of optics anyway, for the Iranians and Hezbollah. If they were able to hit legit IDF military bases in a significant manner that would disrupt operational capacity, or hit the grid, notably the nuclear test sites, then that would be a big, big deal for Iran. As I told you, my biggest fear in a previous video, my biggest fear for the escalation of regional conflict is not so much Iran being capable of, destroying Israel, or Israel, well, I don't know, Israel seems to have lost its freaking mind, but I see that as highly unlikely. There's going to be no invasion. This is 4,600 kilometers. There's going to be no ground invasion. What is most likely to happen, in my opinion, if this does escalate, is that a country like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Turkey's already talked about it, not so much the UAE, not Oman, Yemen's already on their side, Iraq, Syria, Jordan is already up Israel's ass, but all of these states could basically see significant pressures from their domestic populations being like, yo, our Muslim brothers in Gaza and the West Bank are being oppressed. This is unjust. Israel is showing that it's the great Satan, or whatever it wants to be called. These people start protesting on the streets. They put pressure on these authoritarian governments in places like Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and that forces these countries not necessarily to intervene militarily against Israel, but to withdraw support from Israel. For example, to say Iran wants to hit Israel, right? It needs to either cross, well, it does need to cross Jordan or Syria. Ideally Jordan. But now, if you look at the interception space for a rocket fired from here, most of it is over the Persian Gulf, which is where the Roosevelt is currently stationed. And that's going to be an adjunct to American capacities right now. But most of that's over Saudi Arabia. The Jordanian airspace is pretty small, and Israeli airspace is even smaller. Now, you have Jordan operating a combat air patrol here in Jordanian airspace, and they did a lot to help the Israelis last time. But if there's saturation fire coming from Iran, and Saudi Arabia says, Israel, you can't fly in our airspace, Jordan, you can't fly in our airspace. If that were to happen, the degree to which threats from Iran could be repelled before they arrived en masse, would be significantly degraded. And oh my god, my head is covering, look at this, party people, my head is covering an ad for Walmart Canada hot dogs that just popped up on my screen. So let's give a shout out to hot dogs. I don't know how that got on there, but let's give that a shout out. And it's 3:30 in the morning here in Calgary. I'm trying to pump out this content because this is a dynamic and ever-evolving situation. I apologize for the poor quality of the production, but I haven't really had time to work on that. But if you do like the content that that we're producing here at Prime Rogue, and that we're going to keep producing, including in our Everyday Intel series, please drop us a like, a follow, a subscribe, or whatever it is on YouTube or Twitch, and drop the video a like or whatever, and we'd appreciate it. And as you examine this geopolitical event and other ones to come, govern yourself and govern your portfolios accordingly. I'd like to thank Wapaka in our live audience for his very, very intelligent question and his insights regarding Bitcoin. And I'm going to bid you all a very, very, very good night.